now tuned into the Modern Spiritual Life Coaching Podcast by the certified master life coach and spiritual guide, Coach Chip. Welcome, souls. We now begin this episode of a transformational journey. Unedited, unscripted, and creating something from nothingness. Now, let there be light on Modern Spiritual Life Coaching.
This is episode number 93 on the Modern Spiritual Podcast with me, Alchemy Coach Chip, on Out of the Garage. And before I start things up, I just want to let you guys know that this episode, Out of the Garage, is named Meeting with the Gatekeepers and the Divine. But before I get into this, I want to let you know that this podcast that I do is out of the studio. The equipment back in the studio is running. Unscripted, unwritten, and I tell you from the way it is within the walls that I walk, within the home. I'm staying in the home today, not outside, doing the podcast because we have monsoon rolling in here. We've got a lot of wind, got some heavy clouds coming through here, lightning, so I'd rather remain inside where there won't be much interruption from the outside elements. As well as I wanted to let a lot of the listeners know that this is where you get 1 hour of an unscripted, unwritten, and this is all done on intuition. Out of 850,000 podcasts, this is one that can do it like this way. This is how the higher self instructs me to do it. The other thing I want to mention too is that the results came back from my COVID-19. I am COVID-19 free. Traces, none. Negative, if you want to call it that. Never been infected, never contracted, never was asymptomatic. I was exempt from all of that. And on tomorrow's episode, the Friday, I'm going to tell you about the COVID-19 backdoor entries, how you can be affected. Many doctors are not talking about this because they don't really know about it, and some are talking about it, but they don't explain it right to the people because they're on that doctorate language. And it really doesn't balance with the patients or people that want to know from the doctor because of their language. So I'm going to give you the best detailed for understanding all learning abilities and all, pretty much all languages of English. And the other thing I wanted to mention too is that I had to stay away from my own family for many months because my wife was battling this COVID-19. And everybody around me I want to keep safe. And I'm staying out of the fire because if you can walk through fire, you don't want to walk through it. You want to stay out of it. So I'm being safe for everything and everybody due to the respect for humanity. Okay? That's a respect of cause. Until this thing gets under control or they figure out what. It's like connecting the dots with this COVID-19. Okay, and I'm going to give a lot of information about it, how you can live a more natural life through this COVID-19 by boosting immunity. And the best way of doing it, because I've already done it. And I've already tested it. And I know it works for me. I can't say it works for everybody, but I know in general it works. Okay, and there's a lot of things that you have to do. So I don't know if I mentioned to my father happy birthday, but for his birthday, happy birthday, Dad. And I don't know how holidays will be celebrated either, but many people are talking about Halloween events and parties being already canceled because of the COVID-19. So there's a lot of things that are unforeseen right now. But we're going to do things here on the podcast and on our YouTube channels to make it much more entertainable and enjoyable than just sitting at home, right? Because this goes back to the old days when we couldn't get out because of Halloween restrictions, because they had things going on back in the day. They had people put certain things in candy, tampering, and they had to call off Halloween trick-or-treating. So we had to do it in other ways. So it's like the first time that holidays had to be spent differently. It's just that everybody's got to do it in the globe. Because this is a very powerful and deadly disease that plays the game of dead. And from what I've been told by the divine, is that this COVID is going to only affect a big percentage of people. And there's a reason. It's a test for everybody. And the ones that doesn't get affected, like myself, that are exempt from it, as many other healers are exempt from it as well, we are being tested in other ways. And some of these ways are life and death. And I'll explain in the gatekeepers, it's life and death. And the game there, I don't know which game you want to play. The virus, they're all tests. The universe tests everybody in all kinds of ways. If it ain't going to be the virus, it's going to be financially. If it ain't financially, it's going to be with your career. If it ain't with your career, it's going to be in relationships. If it ain't relationships, it's going to be your health and wellness. If it ain't that, it's something. One thing or the other is going to be tested. It's going to find what's not in balance, and you're going to take care of it. I'm already seeing it happen to surrounding people that had relationships, and they're falling apart. And I overhear that they were never good relationships. They were always out of balance. I could see it. I could hear it. And they finally come to awakening of understanding that this relationship ain't going to work, so they bail out of it. But they still have an issue that they always say, that other person needs to change. Well, no, you need to change on the inside to change the outside. And there's a great deal of things why they're happening on the inside. But that's a different episode. So here we go. End of this podcast of the Gatekeeper and the Divine, which to most third dimensioners, when I say 3Ders, those are people that have only 5 senses that they use. 97% of people use only 5 senses. We have over 377 sensories throughout our body. 97% of people only use 5 out of 377. So there's 372 that those people don't even use. That's a hell of a lot. There's a lot more that you haven't seen, heard, or felt. If you're only working on 5, you're at the tip of the iceberg. If you're like me and many others, and you opened up a whole bunch more, and there's a lot more than us still opening up, you'll know And when you get to that point, you start to see beyond the third dimension, which we call it the physical. And you see beyond the things that others can normally not see or believe. That's why people say, well, I don't believe it, because they're stuck. They're in that quicksand, that pitfall. You know where your struggles come from and your barriers? They come from you, inside of you. It ain't the neighbors. It ain't the boss. It ain't the friends and family. It's you. You place limitations on the inside of you. And you have to open those up from the inside. And you have to then fix it, test it. And if you don't test it, the divine will. And as of this morning, I've been tested through a portal that goes to the heavenly gates of heaven, if you want to call it heaven. And I finally got, for the first time in this lifetime, to see my soul contract and how it goes down. And that was explained in disclosure of why and how. And that's how it goes down. Last night I went to bed early because I felt tired. I needed to dump energy and renew my energy into... And it usually takes about 3 to 6 hours for this body to do it. That's all your body needs. I took a shower, went to bed. Around almost midnight, my wife said that I woke up sweat, head to toe, completely in sweat. At this time, I was in a portal, and there was energy in the form of a man with robes, dark robes. Now, at this point, I'm astral planning into this portal, and these gatekeepers, what they call them, are the ones that protect the Akashic files and protect certain portals going to the heavens. They're very powerful, and one source can do a lot of damage. That's why they're there. They are more powerful than anything that you could ever imagine. And they set the rules and the boundaries. And they play no game. When you got to protect the heavens, you got to be pretty powerful. And there's many of them there. Okay? So this portal was dark. It had a lot of souls in there, a lot of souls. And there was just a lot of icky noise. Darkness, a little bit of light here and there, and there was a lot of movement in the portal, opening and closing in all ways that you could not imagine. And I was told by the gatekeeper that you must go through this portal and find the light and get into the light. If you do not, then you will remain here in this portal forever. That's all he said. I said, okay. So I was going through the portal, and I tell you, it was like walking in a landmine. Everything you could imagine was coming at you, and you had to dodge it to get around it, to get to that portal hole of that light in total darkness. So over many obstacles and trials and going through this stuff, I come to an end of a portal. I thought it was a portal, and it closed on me, and I got stuck. As I looked the other way, I had all these souls coming at me, and it looked like a big boulder or something that was coming straight for me. And I can't go nowhere. So the thing I did was I just said, I'm going to surrender. I surrendered out. Said, okay, let it be. Moments later, there was a light. And I was told by the man in the robe, get to the light now. This stuff is going to be faster and faster. So I dodged into the light. As I did, I was over my body, and then I woke up. My eyes could see the light. I was not no dream. I was conscious on the way in back into the body. I was still conscious, and I stood up. And I went into the light, and then I said, I got to go back into the bedroom because I had to go to the bathroom. And the first thing the man in the robe told me, it wasn't a man, it was a thing in the robe, but he said to me, congratulations, you passed. You have made it into the light. And now you're going to go back, and you have succeeded. That was your trial. What would have happened, he said, if I didn't make it, I would have died in my sleep within having a heart attack. They give me the disclosures at the end. Not in the beginning, but at the very end, they give you disclosure of what would happen to you if you didn't make it. That's how it works. Makes sense, because if they give you the closure in the beginning, your ego will be pumped up, your adrenaline will be pumped up, but you don't got none of that when you're a soul. You don't have a high adrenaline, you don't got ego, you don't got emotions, you don't got feelings. You're in the state of being. And when you're told this is what you need to do, you're going to do it. If you don't do it, then whatever happens, happens. And you deal with it. In every moment. So that's what happened to a lot of people. So when I stood up, my wife says, you are completely soaking wet. She's in a nightmare. That's what the third dimensions call it, a nightmare, right? It wasn't, that wasn't a nightmare. Because in the nightmare, you're not conscious awake. The reason why I was soaking wet, because my physical body was going through a lot. And if I didn't make it through that portal, I would have died. So if that would have happened, then they would have come and took me away, and they would have looked at the medical examiner and said, he died in the middle of the night sleeping in a heart attack. They would have never known why or what happened, or known about the portals, or known about nothing, right? They wouldn't. They would just classify, all right, the body died. Or, he's 50, going on 51. Okay? The physical body has to have the reason, and the power of God can make decisions on anything. That's why some people die and come back. Because you have a choice. And he'll ask you. So then I came back into the room, and I sat down on the bed, and he told me to sit. I had no wants, no needs, no desires, no nothing. I just enjoy the peace, the love in the moment. I could feel all the energy. I could see the whole room filled with white light. That's when Divine came to me and said, you're a very old soul, and that the virus is continuing on the planet. It's going to be a lot worse, and more people are going to die. You were exempt from it because you're a spiritual healer. And you have healed yourself through many illnesses and diseases in the past. You have already taken those tests and proven it many times over. Never got credit for it. But you did get your credit. Because now, to prove it to you, here's your soul contract. It was a white light, a scroll. When I saw this, I could not believe the writing in Scripture. I couldn't even read the whole thing. It goes back many thousands and thousands of years of things that I've done and accomplishments, and I've greatly succeeded at these things. That's why I'm at the level that I'm at. That's why. And now he said, well, you made it through the portal, the test, and you get another lease on life. So you get, 50 years? Another 50 years to live. But continue your mission, helping people out. It's amazing. And then, as always, in the past, if you see or listen to some of my archives, you'll see that I have been with the divine before. And he touched me with the energies, and you could feel nothing but love. And I broke down to cry because the heart chakra, he talks through your heart chakra. And with the consciousness, filled my room in my head and told me that I've completed it. And congratulations, and it's the second time. And he says many people and all people will experience their test this year in many different great ways. Some will have the COVID-19. Many that didn't pass will die. Soul contracts are expiring. So he signed all these soul contracts about the same time. And many will be going away. And then there's many of us that will get COVID, and you have the second chance of life to wake up. If you don't, within a moment of time, you could get it again and die, because you need to be placing value and moral standards on this planet. That's what Mother Earth requires. It's the nature. It doesn't look at physical things. It doesn't feel emotion like you do. So when the divine says, many people ask the question, how come I don't help them or answer their prayers? He did not build the prisons. He did not make guns. So he doesn't lock men up in the prisons that man built. He doesn't pull the trigger on the gun that man made. And all these things that men are experiencing on this planet, life and death, he did not create. Man is killing man. You need to understand that. So why would God want to intervene in something that he didn't create? Why would he come down here to help people out that is doing it to themselves? Makes sense. And that's what he said. And I understand in fullness because I'm at that level of understanding. So now, after that, I couldn't sleep for 3 hours. I was wound up. A lot of innovation ideas came through it, but a lot of goodness came to me. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, to tell you that this story is not a ghost story. It's a story of personal experience with the great divine. Well, let's say the divine, and with the gatekeepers. When you get up to the gatekeepers and you get up to that high plateau, you're going to know. And you're going to know the reason for it, because you're going to be told. You're going to have your review. And the main thing about it is he showed me, this is how I see the planet and the world. As I view it in my visions, he sees it nearly the same way. But there's no emotions to it. So he only feels love. That's a great understanding of how it works. So playing or being in two worlds here, you know the answers to it. So that's where this podcast comes out, with my experience of what happened to me this morning. Now, my wife is completely grounded on the 5 senses of the chakras. Oh, there's no way she could believe a story like that. But she saw it. But she could not see nor hear anything that was around it because it was only for me. And the consciousness of God and souls, spirits, whatever you want to call them, can't talk to a group of people. It can only talk to an individual at a time. Okay? So God doesn't stand up on a podium like the president and speak and do that. He doesn't. It's he can only do it one at a time. And that was proven too, over many, many thousands of years. And it's proven again, and it's been proven to me. This is something that you have to experience through your inner self. That's something that's hard to explain, but I'm explaining it the best that as I experienced it. Because it's something that man has to experience. If you ask why you're going through what you're going through, you're being tested. And they're going to test you good. It's a hell of a ride. And your last ride is a heck of a ride. I don't even feel like I'm alive today. Because I've been through hell and back. And you'll go through these portals, and these portals, some of them will just wipe you out. Then when I went back to sleep for a couple hours, I was in a deep sleep. So I know what I was going through and why. I was already told. I had to try to figure it out. Because that one needed to be clarified because it was probably the end of my time. But I wouldn't have died from a virus. I would have died from a heart attack. But everything's all squared back to where it should be. And now it just completely boggles the mind at first because it's that's information that nobody can give you. That's information that I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like, wow, it's deep stuff. Especially leaving the body all the time. That's why you do it enough times. You start doing it all the time. It becomes a natural thing. It's like waking up and putting your shoes on. It's like driving a car. And you do so much, you know that it's real. But it's not a dream, because if it was a dream, it would be a one-time thing, right? But when you do it all the time, you know it's real. Other people can choose, and they have free will to believe what they want. And if they experience something, and they would tell you, and, you know, with excitement and well, I saw this and I da. And you'd be like, yeah, that'd be nuts, right? You'd have the same response back to them. So that's expected, you know, for everything. But this is not going to be a full hour because I've gone through a lot of stuff. in the last couple of weeks. And I'm doing some physical changes here. I am actually going to explain on the Friday tomorrow about how and why some of our food and things, why we must give them up. Even our favorite foods that may not be healthy for us, I'll explain that. Plus, on August 1st, I'll have a live interview with another healer. She's out of Glendale, Arizona. Her name is Claudina. And I'll tell you more information about that on Friday as well. And you'll see the advertisement and the audio ad coming up here tomorrow as well. And they have a community center over there. And there's a lot of great things that can help you heal from the inside, products and services that she does, and some spiritual coaching is what I do. That's something you don't want to miss. It will be very exciting. So what I'm going to do is leave this podcast at 30 minutes or 31 minutes and plug it with a song at the end here. I appreciate everyone that has come to this podcast and listened. And listening to the ads supports us. So support the advertisers back. And I've just greatly appreciated that the information that I give to you is all in truth. It ain't the stuff out there that people are trying to do by trying to make money, by telling you about the law of attraction and giving you a PDF and a free gift and all that sales and marketing stuff. This stuff, we don't work that way. We could do it if we wanted to. That was the old days of doing things. But you know what? The true stuff is for free. And we have advertisers that back us up here. Sometimes you'll hear a lot of ads, but hey, guess what? That's paying. It's paying for this podcast to be on. So you have to be grateful. Because if I didn't have ads, like on the last network I didn't have ads, and many, many months ago I didn't have ads, you know, the podcast came up and went down as it freely did. It couldn't be on a schedule, and it was hard to do any of that when you're not getting paid. But when you start to get advertisers and you're monetizing, it's a different story. You have an audience. You have to be there on that day for the audience. You gotta, promote it, and you gotta, put your 100% in. There's a big difference to that. If you want me to teach podcasting, I could do that too, and broadcasting. But I'm not into teaching everybody on a term like that. Because a lot of these things that I've done, pieces of them over my 50 years of learning and experiencing, my careers that I've done, and the things that I've done, I've reused them in this society, in this day and age, after 30 years of learning it. And they process a different effect. So it's because if you learn something like podcasting or video casting or whatever, you're going to use it in different ways. Now I'm doing mine the way I do. I've always done it for the last 30-something years. So I'm going to say, wherever you're listening around the world, I bid you a good day and a good night. Tune in for the Friday, starting at 8 a.m. Mountain, Arizona time. Eastern time would be 11 o'clock. And I believe it would be Central time to Midwest. Until the next episode tomorrow, I bid you a good day and a good night. And adios until the next episode right here on the Modern Spiritual Podcast with Alchemy Coach Chip.